And that's why I've always said that all bodies are beautiful. You know me, Carlz. I've always been very body positive, very much a believer in just be yourself, just be you, just let it all hang out. There's nothing wrong with that, Carlz.
You and Tess Holiday. I happen to just have something here that I did last year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This is all on beauty standards. And having said that, oh God, I realized that maybe you should have been the front cover because,
because I set the standard. I know. Thank you. I'm glad that somebody appreciates that, hey, big is beautiful, bold. Look, I've been reading the comments and some people have kind of called me out a little bit. I haven't really gone as far as I should have. So I've booked in to get a septum piercing.
How much worse does it get?
I've booked in to get a septum piercing. And I'm just debating between like flame pink or bright blue for the hair. I haven't decided which way to go yet.
It's all so tedious.
You know you love it, Carly. Honestly, don't pretend.
Do I?
Don't pretend.
Look at my caption. My cuppeth is fulleth. I'm done with stupidity. Yeah. I am done with retardation. I'm done. I'm friggin' over it.
And I am hashtag, so I win, because hashtags win. Hashtag all bodies are beautiful. So there you go. I win.
I don't want to burst your boomer bubble, but hashtags were retired like 3 years ago. No one uses them.
Didn't get the memo.
Okay.
Didn't get the memo. And I have glasses, which means I'm smarter than you. So I win twice. That's a back-to-back.
I was wondering why my face looks so big. It's because my camera's so close to me. There we go. How's that?
Yeah. Gobi Rails got it. Hashtag win.
Speaking of smart, I think I mentioned this to you last week, but I bought this because Jimmy, not Jimmy Dore, what's his name? Jimmy, the comedian. Bloody hell, what's his name?
Jimmy Dore is a comedian.
Is that the British guy?
Why
have I forgotten his name all of a sudden?
Jimmy Carr.
Jimmy Carr.
You're talking about Jimmy Carr, right? Yeah.
Jimmy Carr. Yeah. I quite like Jimmy Carr. Anyway, he was talking about this, and I cannot put this book down. It's a meaty guy. And essentially what it's talking about is the cycles of politics. And so for anyone who doesn't know and anyone that might be interested, you guys need to go get this book. It's called The Fourth Turning. And they wrote it in 1997. And it's basically called out everything that's happened, not because it was a premonition, but because politics and life itself comes in a cycle. And that's essentially what the book's all about. But G and I were reading it and I was like, oh my God, I need to get to the end. I need to know what they said. And they predicted the pandemic. They predicted the GFC and 9/11. And they said, one of these will happen, yet all of them did. And I was like, so what happens next? And one of the authors unfortunately has passed on, but Neil Howe has written a second version of this book that's coming out in May. And I'm like, I need to know what's happening next, mate. I need some good news. And so what came after The Fourth Turning was the first wave, which was in history's terms, the 1950s, post World War II, or the Gilded Age, the age of the railways and the decadence of the New York and all that sort of stuff. So I'm like, that feels like there's something good on the horizon. But he says that doesn't sort of arrive until like the early 2030s. So strap on. Honestly, strap in.
I haven't. Well, given the thumbnail, maybe we just want to be like careful.
Don't say it.
We just got to be careful about phrasing this episode. Like, we're going to go full Archer, right? Phrasing. Okay, we're just full Archer mode.
Okay.
No. But I haven't read that particular book, but that mirrors my own instinct, which is not based on what they've said, but is based on my own kind of reading of history and my own instinct for where we're at right now. I think there are really good times ahead. History isn't going to stop all of a sudden until Jesus comes back, and who knows when that's going to be. So we're going to get through this. The question is, what does it look like on the other side of this? And I think it's going to suck. I think we've got some really dark chapters ahead, although I'm more optimistic now than I've been in quite some time. But the next couple of years are going to be intense. There's some stuff's going to suck, okay? And it's going to be very different in different parts of the world. Some parts of the world are going to go full Venezuela before they get better. Other parts of the world are going to come out of this real soon. And it's up to us to make sure that Australia is one of the latter ones. But I think on the other side of what's coming our way are really good times.
I think I mean, look, I'm only halfway through the book now, to be honest, but there's chapters in there talking about the cycles of the generations as well. So you have the
Yeah.
cycles of, I'm going to say politics just to make it more easy to understand, but then you also have the generations. And if you're born in one cycle and how you retire in the other, it really changes the way the structure of everything works. So obviously
Yeah.
the boomers who were born in the 50s, they got the best of times as a child, which is why they're having a really hard time reconciling with that now in their I was gonna say twilight years, but like their elder years, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just fascinating. If anyone's interested or if you're a reader, I highly recommend this book. So anyway.
So a couple of good super chats already. So Sen09 from Outer Space is dedicating himself to public service, having seen the thumbnail that you've all been traumatized by. For those of you that came in late and never saw the thumbnail, well played you.
Don't worry, I have it here.
Oh, do you just? From this day forward, I dedicate myself to making better memes of Topher to save humanity and Australia. I'm told there is a wonderful meme repository of me on what's that? What's the WeChat whatever thingy that you're on?
Discord.
That thing. One day I will learn how to turn a computer on, and then look out. Eventually, I'll figure out how to get into a Discord.
I do appreciate this from Pro Engineer, though.
I just removed that so people can see it. I can totally see that some people's faces would have been like that.
But for those who haven't been in Discord, you can go and join the general chat. But the memes are fun. That's probably my favorite part of the Discord. And yes. So anyway, do you want to talk about why we have this horrific photo?
Well, let's just get through a couple more of the super chats here. So the thumbnail's hilarious. Poor Albo trying to spoil our fun. That was kind of the point of why I posted that picture. So for those that don't know, that picture of me, I made on Grok, and I posted that to my Facebook page today, specifically to show that you don't have to be a sook, right? And my whole thesis on this is it's fake. It's not real. That's not a real picture of me. That's not an embarrassing picture of me. It's a fake AI-generated caricature of me, and it's freaking hilarious. And our Prime Minister is a sook. Besides, we can all have a laugh these days, except for our Glassjaw PM. Varan 8, you're exactly spot on. And
what
Fountain
was my
Hope,
funny quip back to you? I was funny. Come on. What I said was hilarious.
I have no recollection of you ever being funny. Let me just check my phone for a quick reminder. I would have saved it in my calendar. No, there's no reference to you being funny.
I said I've seen cadavers in better shape than this.
Yes,
I thought that was hilarious.
You did. Yes, that's true. So I almost vomited when I saw that thumbnail, but Topher and Trump look great. Stunning and brave. Both of them stunning and brave, just like it's country and Western. Both of those things. Carly, I have to ask this question. Was that an existing photo of you? Is that me? Stormtrooper in shorts.
This is not about me. This is about you now. There is so many.
Oh, wow. That's so... Okay, I'm going to have to learn... Wow, that's my hair. The way my hair used to be like that. Back when I was cool. Back when I looked like Javier Milei. Boromir, Sherlock Holmes, Gandalf. Okay.
Hey, man.
Okay, that's a good look. I'm doing Halloween like that. Guys, some of you have way too much time on your hands.
Oh, there you go. That's the Rock.
Oh my goodness.
I think these are the PC ones. And if we come down here, you guys can see we've got all these different channels when you're a paid up Audie. But if we go to the memes chat.
Oh yes. That is a very appropriate.
It's a rather big hand that's just hanging. I love AI.
Is that a gopher? A gopher face? That's funny.
Jeremy Clarkson. Oh God. Sorry, there's a lot in here, but
we need to send this. Oh, nice. We need to send this to our Prime Minister and say, harden up, get a sense of humor, and let people laugh at you. Let people have a poke at you. It's honestly, it's good for the soul.
The left don't have a sense of humor, but what I love about this is like, this is not a new concept, the Streisand effect. The more you try and shut something up in Australia, that means we double down. The more you're like,
100%.
oh, this isn't good, everyone's like, right. And I just Googled before both Keir Starmer and Albo in a bikini, and they are relentless. They are everywhere.
It's going off. I've included some of them in a video that's coming out tomorrow. Apologies in advance. Commies don't have a sense of humor, 100%. So Chiminade has just asked, where are these images coming from? Just joined. You'll find those via the Buy Me a Coffee button, the Discord that you'll find there. But those are in the members area. So there is a general area that you can just join in and introduce yourself and say hi. But if you want the fun stuff, you got to become a supporter. So that's a monthly subscription. But then you get, hey, memes of me. What more could you possibly want? What other value add? What other value add could we possibly offer on top of that?
And for those who are looking for the link to Discord, it is in all of the video captions on YouTube. So if you can't see it yet, it'll definitely be there by the end of this live stream.
Yeah.
And you can join for free, but if you want access to all the channels, you do have to be a paid member.
If you want the fun stuff. Atheist for Christ, first time watching a live stream. I need to apologize for mistaking this Carly and Carly Unfiltered. Both are awesome, but this is my Carly, and the other Carly does a podcast with Tim Molesworth, so they're the enemy. Stay back.
There's only one spicy Carlz.
There is only
I don't
one
know this other Carly. Carlz. I assume she's awesome, but there is only one Carolina. Carolina?
Yeah.
Right.
Carolina Reaper. Carly is dead. Long live Carly. That's what I say. Both seem good, though, says Atheist for Christ. Harden up, Albo. 100%. 100%. Could not agree more.
Isn't it interesting? On the right, this has been happening for a while now, but you've got, Joe Rogan, Isaac Butterfield, a bunch of comedians who have been saying that wokeness and progressive politics is killing comedy. And comedy is always at that bleeding edge of politics, right? Like, that's what makes it funny, because you're like, oh.
Yeah. Are we allowed to say that yet?
Yeah. And I would tie that also over to the clamp down on everyone's language, particularly around words, right? So there's a lot of words you're not allowed to say now. Now, the word fat was banned. You're not allowed to call people fat anymore.
Yep.
Because, it was derogatory. So you come up with new words, but they always still mean the same thing. So that pejorative still comes around, just give it enough time and eventually it catches on.
Correct.
So I've been saying the word retard a lot recently, and I've had a few people say, oh, don't say that, Carly, that's derogatory. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's just a word. You choose whether or not you are offended by it. It is a proper word. It's been in the dictionary a really long time. You can have retardant. It can be retarded. It doesn't necessarily always have to be a pejorative.
You can retard the engine in order to reduce its power output. It is a genuine English word.
You use retardant in painting when you don't want your acrylics to dry too fast. So, and this is the thing. When you become really sensitive to language and words, the whole point of this, of course, is to stop us being able to communicate clearly. And I want to go on a rant for a second. So you know how I've been doing these reels. In these reels, I write them like an essay. So when I'm writing them, I'm just thinking, how I could sort of cram as much into 3 minutes as possible. And I don't think people realize how hard that is. Like, I did a reel on Iran today, and to try and push all of that into 3 minutes is almost impossible. But I do it in a way that's like entertaining, but also educational. And, I use bigger words apparently, and that's quite offensive to some because, it's, what do you call it? It's excluding people. And I had a well-intended man message me, because always a dude, who said, I really love your content. Your content's great, but, you're overusing really large words, and it might make your content better if you simplify the language. To which I replied, what's stopping people getting a dictionary? You're essentially punishing excellence by trying to make everything mediocre. And what I mean by this is, the more we limit language, the more we take language away from us. You come down, you boil it all down to really, really simple words, and it becomes a lot harder to convey depth and emotion if you prohibit people's language. And that's an extension of this whole X thing.
Counterpoint. Winston Churchill. I think we would agree, a wonderful orator, someone whose words evoked enormous emotion and connected with people at a very deep level, and he conveyed tremendous meaning. He is notable for using very elementary language, especially by the standards of his time. But even today, overall, you'd listen to, if you actually pay attention, these are single or dual syllable words with occasional bigger words thrown in. And yes, okay, some of the words are arcane now. They're not what we're used to now. So it seems like sophisticated language. Actually, just stop and look and accept that the common vocabulary was a bit different back then. His language was incredibly simple. But what he did was he was artful in how he put it together, how he constructed it. His power actually came from the creation of not genuine rhyme. He wasn't rapping, he wasn't rhyming, he wasn't speaking in a rhyme, but there was echo, there was tempo, there was light and shade in the structure of how he put his words together. So I would say even a level deeper, Carly, yes, there's vocabulary. I agree with you on that. You shouldn't have to dumb your vocabulary down. But actually, there's even another level beyond that. And that's something that I don't think I've ever attained. And it's most notable because you can go back before Churchill, but you go back not much further and there's no recordings. You can't hear them speak. You can only read what they've written. Churchill, we can hear him speak. And there is a lilt, there is a lyric to how he uses his words, simple though they were. So I'd say there's another level again.
This comment here, though, if it's overused, you come off as a snob. How is it snobbery? How is speaking well, communicating clearly, using an extensive vocabulary snobbery? I would argue that makes you someone who's very short-sighted, someone who's small-minded. There's nothing wrong. Go for it.
Counterpoint. You and I complain about people who use the in vocabulary because they've had a certain university degree or they're a part of a particular profession and they want to virtue signal how much they know by using the in vocabulary that kind of excludes other people. I think I'm interpreting here, but I think what this comment is possibly referring to is that if you overuse a word that is not particularly common, then it comes off the same way as someone who wants to overuse the vocabulary of their particular profession just to let you know that they had the degree.
Yeah, look, I see both sides of it. I certainly do. And I think it also, you need to speak for your audience, right? So if you're obviously talking to fifth graders, you're not going to go out and speak as if you're Jordan Peterson talking to people at the O2 Arena. You know your audience. But what I have noticed, I mean, I'm trying to prepare a video on this at the moment around literacy, and the statistics, particularly around Gen Z and Gen Alpha, are terrifying. I think it's 44% are falling below the baseline of literacy in Australia, and there's no excuse for it. The excuse is that we now have a lot of short form content. We have very limited focus, and also we don't push people as much. Like, not to bore you all, but I've been going down a rabbit hole with this. And a lot of it is to keep people small-sided, exactly that. Like, by limiting your access of a way to express yourself, it becomes a lot easier to be more compliant, isn't it? So, I mean, if you want to put your conspiracy theory hat on, your tinfoil hat, you could say this is all by design. I think the other thing to consider here as well is, what benefit is it to us as a society, as a culture at whole, by having our literacy decline? How does it help us? Yes, we have AI. Yes, we have all this. But I mean, at the end of the day, what if the grid went down? What if you don't have the internet all of a sudden? Now everyone walks around and just like beats their chest. Like, do you know what I mean? We just regress.
I agree with you on the bigger point, which is that we need to maintain our vocabulary. We need to keep our vocabulary. We talked before about how you think in terms of the language that you have. And if someone's multilingual, they actually have more pathways with which to think. And so allowing your vocabulary to contract is going to then start to limit the ways in which you think. We've talked about that before. I'm in wholehearted agreement. But what I find interesting, Carly, I'm going to call you out here. This feels like a call out episode. This feels like I'm just going to
say, why are you attacking me? What have I done?
No, I'm going to be pushing back the whole night. This is why we have to allow people to create new words like aesthetic. We have to allow language to change and include.
Do you want to have this argument again?
No, look, we have had this before, and you are correct. It's not a new word. But we have to allow language to introduce new words. Otherwise, we are only shrinking. And so
I don't have a problem with that. Like, slang's not a problem, like, because someone counteracted my argument around that with like the whole 6-7 thing. I'm like, I don't have a problem with that. Every generation has their vernacular. Like, no one uses grouse or radical anymore, or cowabunga, or like, gnarly.
It's a shame, actually. Cowabunga was good.
Cowabunga. What was that? Was that Gen X? Was that like a Simpsons thing?
That was the youngest end of Gen X into me in the form of the
Oh no, it's
Ninja
Teenage
Turtles.
Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, not
Ninja
Bart
Turtles.
Simpson.
Yeah,
What am I thinking?
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, language moves, that's fine. But I think it's really interesting how the left love to tell you which words you can use and can't use. And it's like the word you could use last week all of a sudden becomes taboo because we've decided, oh, that one's a bit offensive.
Yeah. All
Yes,
right.
I
We need to get
agree.
some actual topics.
All right. So do you want to talk about the whole X thing? This whole bikini thing? Well, I'm not going to bring up any more bikini photos, but what's your
Look.
take on it? Because I have a version too.
Yeah, look, it's sort of, it comes to this question here by a raging Aussie. Hi, Topher and Carlz, a bit late. Will you touch on the Marxist tyrant so-and-so's Canada?
Albanese.
Just to be
I
clear,
haven't seen that.
that's Canada, UK, and Australia. That's not the word that it looks like. PMs and their vengeful assault on free speech, i.e. X-Ban's new announcement by Albanese. Well, that is exactly what we're getting to right now. So you've come in at exactly the right moment. We need to talk about this. Not because I necessarily think it's going to happen, but there's some really interesting things happening at a tactical level with this that I think give us some insight into where various world leaders' heads are at. What we saw was Keir Starmer really led the charge with this. He called it out. He started to ring around. It's been reported. I don't have all the screenshots with me. I'm using them in a video for tomorrow. He started calling around, basically trying to get other world leaders to join in with him to do like a big group simultaneous ban of X. Now, why would he feel the need to have a bunch of his friends? Well, the same reason why a scrawny kid who needs to fight a big kid goes and gets all of his friends to join, so it's a big punch on 10 on 1, right? He knows that this is going to piss off Donald Trump. He knows from the history with both the UK in the case of Apple and the encryption, which I've done videos on, and in the case of the EU as well, and particularly JD Vance going toe-to-toe with them publicly, very, very humiliating for the EU on the issue of freedom of speech. He knows that this is a red line, that for Trump, this is a I will fight you issue. And if they ban X, they are picking a fight with the United States of America. So how do you win that fight? Well, you don't win that fight if you're alone. If you're the UK on their own, if you're even the EU on their own, no one wins that fight by themselves. So he went looking for friends. Now, of course, he found a willing ally in Albanese. I'm very, there was a word he rolled out over and over again. I've got it in my video for tomorrow. We're talking about that language thing from earlier. Like he was overusing this word. That was clearly the word that his handlers had told him, make sure this word makes it into the soundbite. He's on board. Karen's on board. Of course she is. She has a personal axe to grind against Elon Musk.
She's got her own vendetta. Yeah.
She's got her own vendetta. The prevailing theory on this is jilted lover, that she got knocked back by him. I have no idea if that's true or not. But I tell you what, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and she is a vengeful woman. So this suits both of them right down to the ground. What's really interesting to me is that Mark Carney in the UK, right out of the gate, ruled out banning X. So here's Keir Starmer trying to call for reinforcements and saying all options should be on the table. I've ordered Ofcom to look into this and all options are on the table. We've got Albanese and the Karen getting in front of the cameras as quickly as they can and talking about, well, if they're not going to do the right thing, we're going to have to do the right thing for them. And all of the overtone is the entire world is angry at you, Elon Musk, and we're all banding together. And we're going to ban you together. And that way, your Uncle Don back there, the President of the United States, he's not going to be able to help you if we all do this at once, if we're a united gang. Then Mark Carney, whose country has a very long land border with the United States and who is clearly considering his position and his relationship with the United States very, very carefully, right out of the gate. Now, this is interesting to me. There was no dithering. There was no dangling it over Elon Musk's head, even if he had no intention of actually following through. There was no attempt to get leverage. Right out of the gate, I'm ruling this out. We are not going to do this.
Yeah.
Now, that gives you a very good insight, in my opinion, into where his head is at with regard to his relationship with Donald Trump. And it's very clear to me that his relationship with Donald Trump is way more important to him than he wants to let on, and is way more important to him than his relationship with the EU, the UK, Australia, or anybody else. Yeah. One final thought on that before I stop ranting. I wonder, and this is speculation on my part, but I wonder to what degree does the rapid rise of the independence movement in Alberta play into Mark Carney's mind. For those that don't know, just last night, Canada time, there was a referendum. I don't know the results yet, but what I know is that there was a lot of video and a lot of images of very long lines, people standing in the freezing cold in the dark with lines going around the block, people 3 wide lined up to get in and vote on this issue of Albertan independence. There is, and this is a movement that was a nascent nothing movement not very long ago. So Mark Carney is fighting battles on his southern border with the US and internally with these independence movements. And I think that he's essentially bailed out of the club of UK, EU, Australia, and he's siding with Trump.
I think it's, not to be conspiratorial again, but I think it's to slow down the news cycle because they're not able to get their rhetoric out quick enough before everyone's already talked about it. You already got video from every different way. Now, the issue with, say, Meta, right, with Facebook and Instagram is they do have their community guidelines and they do have a lot of AI behind the scenes that will take content down and you can mass report. So if you just don't like someone on Instagram, you can get a whole bunch of people to just mass report that it's child porn. The AI will immediately take it down because it's a mass reporting. And then it's up to you, the person whose post or account gets taken down, to go and plead your case. X doesn't allow that. And so, for example, was it Irina, the poor woman that was stabbed on the bus?
Irina Zarutska, the Ukrainian that was murdered on the train.
So remember, Karen demanded that footage be taken off or censored, right? She didn't want that footage in Australia. The problem with her is that was already viral. It was everywhere. There's nothing she could have done to get that off the internet. And for those who aren't aware, 100%. When I brought up the Streisand effect before, this is based on Barbara Streisand, the singer or the actor. She had a beachfront property up on a hilltop or like on a cliff. And a paparazzo or someone took a photo and it just so happened to have her house in the photo. It wasn't specifically of her house. Her house was in the photo.
Just in it.
Anyway, she made a big song and dance about this and went to town on trying to get this photo taken down. And then that just made everyone curious, like, oh, what's this photo? And so it just basically became a storm in a teacup. Everyone looked at the photo. Everyone knew where her house was. So it just goes to show when you put it, you point people's attention towards it, you make it 10 times worse. So when it comes to things like X, and the reason I think they're so fearful of X is that we saw in COVID that Zuckerberg was somewhat compliant. He is more likely to be pliable to whatever the government of the day's regulations are, right? Now Trump's in, he's obviously repealed a lot of things. He's loosened up a little bit. That's not to say that should Kamala Harris come back for 2028 and win, he wouldn't go back and revert to old policies. With X, everyone knows that it's a definitive line with Elon. He's not changing. He's not budging. He's a free speech absolutist. And I think what a lot of this is, and the fear for, say, an Albanese or a Starmer, is that they already know they have a general public who is very at odds with their policies. And every time there's like an issue with a migrant or there's an issue with or a big scandal that they know they're going to have to confront the media with, they can't get their positioning together quick enough before everyone's already made up their point. Everyone's already made up their mind. You can't change it. And, that whole thing about a lie gets around the world before the truth has a chance to put its pants on. That's the truth with what's going on now. So, for example, you're seeing a lot of polls coming out with One Nation, right? Pauline Hanson's doing really well in the polls. That does two things. Now, I know you did a video on this, and it was only 1,500 people were polled. That doesn't matter.
1,047, which is, as far as polling goes, that's pretty normal. That's not a low amount for a poll.
Yeah, but obviously her detractors will say, "Oh, that's an insignificant poll. It's a really small group." Doesn't matter. The social media posts went up, the story went out, and what that does, whether or not you might agree or disagree, that emboldens a bunch of people who maybe were already thinking a certain way and they just needed that clarification. And then mark my words, the next time a poll comes out, it's going to be an even bigger number because now people are looking around and going, oh shit, I'm not alone. We saw this with The Voice. No matter how much that government propaganda pushed the yes vote, everything on social media said it was a yes. And yet, sure enough, it was a resounding no.
But that only happened because Jacinta Price and Warren Mundine came out there and they kind of led the way. They were the ones willing to go first in terms of high profile public figures they were willing to go out there, cop all the damage and all the flack, and then everyone else coalesced behind them. And that's essentially the same effect that you're talking about these polls having. Lady Patience, I've got your back. I think our situation basically is that either we need one nation to win at the next election, or we need this comment to come true. We need Trump to do to us what he just did to Venezuela. There you go. You're welcome, Lady Patience. And just invade and just remove our little speech befuddled tyrant. Look,
he really is an Alma Fudd, isn't he? It's a perfect description for him.
Look, we need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet, though. This is the problem. It's all very well and good to want a white knight to come riding in and save us. We actually need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet and deal with our petty tyrants at home ourselves. And I'm really excited with what's happening with One Nation. I'm not a natural One Nation person. I'm a libertarian. I will still vote number 1 for the Libertarians, and I'll vote number 2 for One Nation in my preferences. It's one of the reasons why I love the Australian preferential voting system. But One Nation, this is their moment. This history has turned in their favor. So much of what Pauline Hanson was vilified for saying and mocked for being has proved to be prescient. She was decades ahead of her time. You can mock her all you want. She was decades ahead of her time. And as a result, she's now been vindicated. She has a level of street cred, a level of trust that you cannot buy. The only way to get the kind of brand that she has now in Australia is to walk the road that she walked, to go to prison for what you said because they hate you so much. I mean, yes, technically it was for breaches of the Constitution, but ultimately they targeted her because of what she said. And we know they did that because other people with far worse breaches of the citizenship rules were not prosecuted and were not chased. They threw her in prison. She came back. She won again. The number of times they've tried to play tricks on her, play games with her, tried to basically undermine her in every way imaginable, not to mention crucifying her in the media, and yet to still be fighting, 26 years later, something like that, or it might be 28 years since she started the party. There is only one way to earn that level of street cred, and that's to earn it the way that she has. She has a brand now that no other political party in Australia has, or quite possibly ever will have, because I doubt that we will ever see another person earn it the way that she has. History is smiling on her, and I think this is her moment.
Yeah, I think so too. And look, I'm not going to say that Pauline Hanson's our version of Trump, but I think this new breed of politician, which is unfiltered, who says exactly what they mean without all the pontification and all of the, very smooth and savvy PR.
Yep.
You contrast that to Daniel Andrews during COVID, right? He was very slick. I hate giving him any credit.
Yeah.
Everything was well studied. Everything was positioned in a way to make him look the best he could. And that works for a certain while. It works while people are still apathetic and also whilst people are terrified, right? Because the media was doing a really good job at keeping everyone fearful. Now I think everyone's already very cynical and if not skeptical. And whenever you get some of these really slick PR statements or, statements from the politicians, particularly Albo, right, around the Royal Commission right now, it's disingenuous. People aren't falling for it. People are already looking at you going, I don't like you. I don't like what you say. And the more you put out these statements, the more you cement for me that you are not a real person. You are removed from the rest of the collective. And then you get a Barnaby Joyce or you get a Bob Catter or a Pauline Hanson that, obviously very unpolished to a degree. They kind of fluff over the words, but, I do too, because I'm not doing this isn't a script. I'm speaking from the heart. And at times you misspeak and you muck up your words. That's what makes you endearing as well, because it's honest communication. And
this is the thing. Who was it that said, once you learn how to fake authenticity, you've got it made? Yeah. There was some comedian or someone who said that. And, and it's true. But of course, genuine authenticity, you can't fake. And politicians spend a fortune trying to appear like they haven't spent a fortune on messaging and massaging exactly what they say and how they say it. But in the end, authenticity shines through. But the risk now, and I have covered this in detail before, but I'll brush across it very briefly because it seems like we've got quite a few new people watching today, which is great. Welcome, by the way. The challenge they've got now is people want to coalesce as a movement behind someone who's got a chance of winning, and people are not patient. I've made the point over and over again. This is a marathon, not a sprint, etc. And that's true, but people don't understand that. The wider masses, the 2 million people that have just switched to supporting Pauline Hanson's One Nation since the Bondi shooting, because that's what it amounts to. They don't understand that. They haven't been in this game. They're just coming out of their political apathy, possibly for the first time in their life, and they are looking for results. This movement is urgent. This movement wants to win this election, right? Now, I'm not saying that that's possible or that that will happen, but I'm saying that's what they think is going to happen. Now, what that means is if you're going to get their vote, you have to give them you have to dangle the belief that they could win. Now, very, very different example, and I really kind of resent the fact that he did this, but Clive Palmer did that when he said, hey, support the United Australia Party. We're going to form government this election. He was never going to form government. No one should have fallen for that nonsense. But he understood you have to dangle that carrot. You have to make people believe. Ricardo Bossi was the same, right? These people, they're giving you the quick fix. Now, here's the balancing act. I like to be very honest and truthful and say, hey, there isn't a quick fix, and this probably isn't going to happen at this election. At the same time, if you're in Pauline Hanson's shoes, what do? If you say that, the support maybe doesn't coalesce around you. It maybe doesn't come in the same numbers. So what do? How do you handle this balancing act? And I think the single most important decision that they need to make, and make in the next 6 to 12 months at the most, I reckon in the next 6 months, is who is going to be their leader in the lower house. Who is going to be the person under the One Nation banner that can stand up and say, vote One Nation and I will be your prime minister? And it won't be me, by the way, for those that are wondering, because without that carrot, without that incentive, without that hope and that belief, we could do this election. If Pauline does the frankly probably more honest thing and just says, hey guys, we're going to take over the balance of power in the Senate this election and we're going to build towards winning government in maybe another 2 elections time. If she's actually honest about that, then the groundswell may not even happen to anything like the same degree. The reason why reform in the UK have taken off the way they have is because people believe they can make Nigel Farage the prime minister at the next election. One Nation have to tap the same psychology. They have to figure out who's going to be their leader in the lower house. I say it needs to be Barnaby Joyce. They can pick somebody else if they want to, but they need to figure that out, and they need to figure it out soon, and it needs to be a household name that people can believe in.
Yeah, and I think now I've definitely noticed this on social media. This is something that I've been watching closely. You and I speaking the way we've been speaking since, COVID. I mean, you longer than me, but, it was avant-garde. It was frowned upon. And obviously a lot of people were silenced when they tried to speak up during the pandemic. Now, all of a sudden, it's become incredibly trendy to make content that is contrarian and calling out politics. And particularly, pardon me, on the right side of things as well, you're seeing a lot of people pop up, which tells me that people feel either safer to do it or perhaps they're more emboldened. So there is this really big groundswell right now. And my fear is that when you start to get a bit of a win, when people have like an outlier win during a footy roster, they've been on the bottom for ages and then they have one win. And they're hoping that that's it, that's the turning point, and then they go back to losing again. My fear with stuff like this, the hopium, exactly right. My fear with this is that people go, oh, we're winning, great, I can take my foot off the gas now, I can relax. And it's like, no. This is the very beginning. This is where everyone needs to start going, right, this is go time, let's go, let's really kick in. I think it's really important now that, if you haven't felt the emboldened to speak up yet, it's time. Find your voice. And I don't say you don't have to be a Topher or a me or anything. It's more so, just in your own community, in your own circles. And I'm seeing this now, even just before, I was looking at I'm in the, what's it called? Stolen Cars Melbourne Facebook group. And obviously we've talked about youth crime. We've talked about car theft, and it's at fever pitch. And it's so bad now. It's like, there's no point reporting it. Everyone knows, there's carjackings, there's stolen cars, whatever. The rhetoric in that group has changed so significantly. Everyone's done. Everyone's had a gut feel. Very few people are untouched by this now, right? I agree. But that sentiment, when it happened to us, 18 months ago, was totally different. Oh, this is an outlier. You're being hyperbolic. You're cherry picking all of the news. That's not really happening. It's not that bad. Now all of a sudden, oh my God, how is this so bad?
Hashtag not all machete wielding youths.
No. Why? Dude? Stop! Please stop.
All right. So we have a really good question from Sotzia here. Is it possible Labor and Liberal preference each other to ensure one nation just can't get a foothold? Bizarre, but not entirely out of the picture. It's actually, I would say, almost inevitable that will happen. Now, why do I say that? Because from the Liberal National Party's point of view, unfortunately, the National Party aren't going to side with one nation this election. So the Liberal National Party form a coalition. That's the LNP, the coalition that we hear referred to. They are actually two separate parties, but they've essentially agreed to not fight each other over the same seats, right? And they share votes in the Senate. So the Nationals could theoretically leave their coalition with the Liberals and go with one nation. The problem with that is there's an awful lot of bad blood between those two parties, largely because a lot of the territory that one nation has gained has actually come at the expense of the Nationals. And especially now with Barnaby Joyce, who was, as much as I didn't like him, he was their crown jewel. He was their former deputy prime minister, one of the longest serving politicians that we have, and a man who, despite all of his many scandals and his self-inflicted political injuries, is actually very well respected and increasingly well liked, by the way. They stole him away from the National Party. He was kind of their guy. So there's a lot of bad blood there. So the Nationals are going to go with the Liberal Party into this next election. That's pretty much inevitable. The problem is they're going to be watching basically all of their seats disappear. They're going to be watching basically all of their momentum be gone. The Liberal Party are going to feel the pinch as well, not to the same degree as the Nationals, but they're certainly going to lose seats. They're certainly going to lose senators as well. And so they have to make a decision. And I know what the right decision for them is if they wanted to survive, if they actually wanted to survive as a political party. I know what the right decision for them is, but they won't make that decision because I also know the calculus that they use based upon which to make their decisions is why they make such bad decisions. They will make the calculation that they need to do whatever it takes to minimize the rise of one nation. One nation's the threat. We have to do whatever it takes to make sure that one nation don't rise. And so they will give their preferences to Labor above the one nation party. Labor, it's a no-brainer for them as well, because they can work across the aisle on lots of issues with the Liberal Party. There's not that much difference between them. They are a uni party. They are different factions of the same party. So Labor would much rather have a majority, yes, and have the scraps go to a weakened Liberal National Party than go to a firebrand like Pauline Hanson and whoever their leader in the lower house is going to be. So both of them have a vested self-interest in sharing their preferences with each other. The reason why that's the wrong calculation is because the Liberal National Party, they have an arrogance, a presumption that they are a party of government. And so therefore, sometimes Labor will be in power, sometimes we'll be in power. But if Labor are in power, don't stress, sooner or later, we're going to be in power again. This is ingrained into the Liberal Party thinking. We saw that, Carly, you and I saw that on display at CPAC in Brisbane, in Sydney, when we went up there and did Battleground Melbourne Live. And then soon after we did Battleground Melbourne Live, they had a Liberal Party panel that came out and said, oh, fundamentally, we got nothing wrong during COVID. And they got booed by the crowd. This is their crowd, the Conservative Political Action Committee crowd in Sydney, booing the Liberal Party. People staged a walkout. About 34, 35 people walked out of that session. They had Nigel Farage in the room who had just watched us do Battleground Melbourne Live, Carly, and he started calling out, heckling them from the audience, going, read the room, read the room. Like it was fantastic. And this is because they don't read the room. They don't understand what's happening in the electorate right now. And a thing called normalcy bias kicks in. We've all got it, but they've got it hard. And they think, hey, if we just hang in there, it's going to go back to normal. Things will snap back. Voters will wake up out of this fever dream and realize they've made a mistake. That's not true, of course. The tides of history change very much, and parties that used to be huge can disappear into oblivion entirely. And in fact, the original United Australia Party had a prime minister and then disappeared into oblivion. And that's a whole other story. So what we have here is a Liberal Party that thinks if they just tough it out, it'll come back their way. What they don't realise is that if they put Labor above one nation on their how to vote cards, and remember in Australia at the federal level, they don't direct preferences. They can only make recommendations on how to vote cards. Everyone looks at the how to vote card, and anyone who's a little bit iffy, who's a little bit undecided, all one nation have to do is say, see, we told you there's no difference between Liberal and Labor. Look. They're preferencing Labor above one nation. And for a very significant, at least hundreds of thousands of Australian voters, that will become the deciding factor. So if Liberal make this mistake and actually put Labor in above one nation in order to protect themselves from the rise of one nation, I think they will actually trigger a tsunami. Instead of being flooded, they will be buried under a mountain of water. They will completely destroy themselves in the process.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. And I really focused on looking at how your average Joe is talking about this now. And like I said, I feel like there has been a shift. There's definitely sort of like a bit of a draft that's pushing people to feel a little bit more, I keep saying emboldened, but a little more confident to voice their displeasure with what's going on. I think the Bondi massacre was kind of like, that was the definitive line in the sand.
For a lot of people.
For a lot of people, not because of Israel and Palestine, but because it was a huge issue that, a terrorist attack took place at Bondi Beach, and that really brought it home for people that our policies and our leaders are making really bad decisions. The bureaucracy is failing because, again, the shooters were known to ASIO. They had flagged him before, and they were able to still get a gun license, like all the things, not to rehash it. That told the Australian public that the status quo is not good and it needs to change. And I don't know how Albanese can win back the Australian public right now. I really don't. I think that's kind of the whole reason that X is such a threat to them. This has got nothing to do with bikinis. And this is what I wanted to say before. People, this really grinds my gears. This is like a niche creative thing. But people seem to have forgotten that prior to 2022, when ChatGPT came out, we had Photoshop, we had books. The human civilization was able to do things prior to AI. And now everything is like, oh, you use ChatGPT for that. Oh, well, Grok's putting people in bikinis. I could do that in 30 seconds in Photoshop. Like, I don't need Grok to do that. I could make 100%. It very convincing. So this whole, well, it's X. No. You can take Grok away. I can still make those images. You can take ChatGPT away. I can still write those prompts. I can still tell you exactly what's going on.
Don't worry, everybody. The Discord meme thread is safe.
It's so frustrating to me because it's like, oh, it's all AI. I'm like, okay, sure. For the mediocre, for the uneducated, sure.
Well, you said it really well, multiple times across multiple podcasts. It's raised the minimum standard. It's made it very, very easy for people to come up to that minimum standard. But also, as I've talked about before, people's perceptions attune very quickly. So what used to be a really scary movie 30 years ago, if you watch that same movie again now, you go, oh, really? That used to freak me out? Like, come on. Arachnophobia. It's hilariously bad. Okay. Our eyes adjust. The first time I watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I thought, oh, these special effects are perfect. Now I watch Treebeard walking around. I'm like, oh, that's a bit janky. Okay. Your perceptions improve. You catch up. And when it comes to AI, this made me feel really good. So my mum and dad saw that picture that I posted of myself today on the internet of me looking morbidly obese. And my mum, I had to explain to my mum that it was AI. I had to tell her that her own son was not really actually that morbidly obese, but that's not the bit that upset me. I had to explain to her that I hadn't really dressed up in a black bikini and had a photo shoot in that lounge chair. But for most of us, it's pretty easy to spot AI stuff now, or to at least go, hang on, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure that that's real. There's hang on, because there's a certain look to it. There's a certain, the textures, the softness, everything has a certain kind of feel to it. And that will advance rapidly and AI will get more and more sophisticated, but our ability to perceive it will also become more and more sophisticated as time goes by. So a lot of these problems will actually become kind of non-issues on their own, in the sense that the perception, the audience will catch up. And that's a little bit of my thesis around, I don't think I got to this earlier. I think we kind of moved on to One Nation a little too quickly. All this fluff and bubble, all this noise about AI generated bikini images. Okay, yes, the child sex abuse material, it's a different category. 100% needs to be addressed, needs to be dealt with. But when it comes to the stuff where people are teasing each other, making mocking photos of each other, being mean to adults, sorry, it's not real. It's not a real picture. Stop treating it like it's the real thing. This isn't like someone got a hold of your phone and is publishing private photos of you that expose intimate details of your life. No, this is an artist's impression of what you would look like, maybe, if the artist's impression is even close to the truth, if you took your clothes off, if you wore a bikini, if you, whatever it might be. It's not real. It's as real as if someone drew a hand sketch of you. Now, what's lagging at the moment is that perception issue. Other people might think it's real. Yes, temporarily, that's true. It's going to take about 3 to 5 years for the general population to stop believing what they see. and to simply
Yeah.
to just not trust anything, because unfortunately that's where we're going. So yes, there is a gap in the perceived reality is still there at the moment, but it's not real. And I think it's really important that we don't treat it as if it's real.
Look, there's a couple of I can sort of see the side on the whole deep fakes, porn deep fakes and things like that. But I just want to separate that for a second, because people aren't currently posting deep fake porn images to X, or if they are, it's not certainly in the main cultural zeitgeist. But people seem to really, really just completely disregard human behavior. This is a novelty. One person did it, everyone did it. Next week, no one will give a shit. This is a novelty. And with social media at the moment, these things last less than a week. You know, it's like when everyone started making the Studio Ghibli pictures in ChatGPT. It lasted less than a week. It was cute. It was a novelty. It's done. You know, like no one's these things don't live long in your memory either. This is a flash in the pan. And given that our attention spans are so short at the moment, no one's going to use this to connect to something else. Like the reason people have deep-seated memories or are able to remember certain parts of time is because they are able to remember a sound or a smell or a location at the time of that thing. So think about 9/11. You know exactly where you were when that happened. Think about, you know, all of the key milestones in your life. There's key place markers that make you go, oh, that was this. With all of this bombardment of ridiculous imagery, whether it's satirical, whether it's real, whether it's not, it's a bit like the war porn. You're seeing so much at at such a speed, your brain can't compute it all. You're not going to remember it anyway. So the more these politicians double down on stuff like this, I'm like, go look at TikTok. These trends are lucky to last 24 hours. And again, it's just smoke and mirrors. I think this is all just a distraction from the real things that are happening right now. But well, you know, talking about disgusting, grotesque images, this was kind of my take on it right now. And you know, this is going to go dark, but I could pull up immediately a ton of images of men dressed as women who have then been charged with really heinous sexual charges. There was a man just last week who was masturbating in a women's toilet, and he got caught, and he said, I'm trans, I'm allowed to do this, basically. That's not verbatim, that's just the summary. And so we don't need AI images. We already have disturbing shit happening all day, every day. That disgusting, gross piece of shit, Lily Tino, going into women's bathrooms, treating it like a novelty, taking selfies in the bathroom with children in the photos. Like why aren't we doing anything about that? The left don't talk about those photos, do they? We've got two gay men dressed in GIMP costumes pissing on each other at a parade in San Francisco when there's children around.
In public.
In public. That's a real photo. I'm not making this shit up. You can go and Google it. This is real. There's a photo of a man getting a blowjob by another man at another pride parade, and there's children in the photo. So if you want to be disturbed by photography and you want to talk about the kind of shit going on the internet, why don't you deal with the cretins putting it up there? I wouldn't be worried about the fake shit.
Yeah, and this is the thing, that there is real stuff in the world that needs to be addressed. And this is what we talk about often, where we need to actually focus on the things that are within our agency, the things that we can improve, the things that we can help, because that way we do make the world a little bit of a better place. If we get so focused on the things that they might be bigger, it feels like a more noble fight to fight. Oh, but that's the real issue. That's the big issue up there. Yeah, but you can't hit that. Right? You've got a little pew-pew, and that's a big target a long way away. You don't have the capacity to make a difference in that specific fight. But there are fights all around you. There are people all around you that need your help, that need your presence, that need the agency that you can bring. There's yourself. Right? We need ourselves to show up for ourselves every single day, because let's be honest, no one else is going to do it to the same degree. Yes, other people love us and will help us and so forth, but no one's going to show up for you day after day except you. So if you've allowed yourself to get so consumed by everything else around you that you've stopped showing up for yourself, well, now you're going to go backwards fast, and you're going to end up being a burden where you could have been an asset. We need to keep our focus where we can actually make a difference. And so many of these fights, the outrage that goes on about, oh, X is doing this. Okay, cool. Number one, not the biggest problem in the world. Now, we've talked about that. Just because it's not the biggest problem in the world doesn't mean you're not allowed to worry about it. But more importantly, number two, it's out of your reach.
Yeah.
Even if it were as big a problem as you seem to think it is, you're not going to make any difference whatsoever. And you're neglecting all kinds of things where you could make a difference and you could actually make a difference in your life and in the lives of those that love you.
I just want to touch on this comment here, all on Blue Sky. So Blue Sky, for those who aren't familiar, it's the new lefty platform. It's basically where all the lefties from X have gone to go and hide. And on that, it like pedophilia is prolific. It's everywhere. These are the worst of the worst, and they've gone over there. And what's the one platform that's not included in the social media ban? Blue Sky.
Wonder why.
So, and this is the thing, right? And this is why they're so threatened by X, and they're so threatened by independent commentators, because I can say something like that, you can say something, and that's all of a sudden like a whole different a variety of opinions that they haven't had to account for before. So normally they just have to fight the coalition or one rogue independent Green senator. But now you've got people like me who work in the industry who are like, well, what about this? They've got people like you saying, well, what about this? So the whole Blue Sky thing, you're really threatened by these disturbing images. Why haven't you banned Blue Sky? You know, and this is the thing. So now all of a sudden they're getting a barrage of abuse or a huge amount of different opinions that they're like, shit, how do we spin this? How do we get the PR machine to like make this appeal to everyone so they all, you know, we're all back in their good graces? They can't. It's impossible.
Now, with apologies to Roy, our editor, because we're kind of switching back and forth between our two key topics for tonight, one being this AI nonsense and the other one being One Nation. But I'm going to switch back to One Nation for a minute because we've got a great question here by Banana Mags in Pajamas. In 97, One Nation took national seats because of the 96 NFA, the National Firearm Agreement, basically the gun confiscation for those that don't know. Do you think the gun debate will play a role in the coming state and federal elections? A lot of rural seats are fed up with the city. 100%. But not just rural seats, because exactly what Carly said earlier, Bondi was a shock, and so it should be, right? It was an outrage. Now, it was not a shock in the sense that I wasn't surprised to see it happen. Neither was Carly, neither were a lot of people. We've all known this was going to happen sooner or later, but then when it happens, it is still a shock, and rightly so. And so there's a lot of people, even in the cities, who collect guns, have guns, know people who shoot. The number of people that I'm aware of that have gone and applied for a gun license because they want to make sure they've got one before the new laws come in. Now, unfortunately, they've left their run too late. It's going to take too long, so they will be affected by whatever new laws are being rammed through. But the number of people who I would not have expected, and all of a sudden they're saying, hang on, I'm going to go and get a gun license now. The number of shooters who are taking their friends out shooting because they know that their hobby or their tool, their collection, their whatever it is for them is under threat now. So shooters are beginning to be a bit more proactive about recruiting new people into their sport and into their hobby, into their pastime. But I think also there's a level of cynicism now. In 96, there was still way too much trust in government. And I would say there still is too much trust in government now. But I think back then, you had amongst the wider population a default position of trust in government. And I don't think that's the case to nearly the same degree anymore. A lot more people have a default position of distrust in government. Still not a majority, not even close, but a lot more people, and enough to really sway those numbers. Now, I want to touch on a question that someone asked earlier that I don't think I spoke about. And they were basically asking, do you really think that One Nation could actually get 100 and what's the majority in Parliament? 76. That's it. Thank you. Over here. They need 76 seats to win in the lower house, don't they? Yes, they do. Is that likely? No, it's not. But a couple of things on this. Firstly, the first major poll to come out since the Bondi shooting put One Nation equal 50-50 with Labor on a two-party preferred basis. So if you understand how two-party preferred works, when they ran it for the LNP, Labor won 52-48. When they ran two-party preferred for One Nation, it was 50-50. Now, take it with a grain of salt. There's error in these polls, etc. I'm not saying that they're necessarily equal yet, but they're the closest they've ever been by a long shot, and all the momentum is with them. Unlike the Senate, in the lower house, every seat is up for grabs at every election. So in theory, it is theoretically possible that we could have the entire lower house made up of One Nation at the next election. That's not going to happen. But in theory, it's the mechanism is there. The system allows for every single seat to change hands. What's needed in practice and this is a mountain for One Nation to climb. Number one, what I said before, a leader in the lower house that can say, vote for One Nation and I'll be your prime minister. And that has to be someone that people actually go, yes, I want that. I want you. It has to be a Nigel Farage for Australia. The second thing is to run a lower house candidate in every single seat in Australia is a gargantuan logistical effort. And you know what one of the hardest things is? Finding candidates who aren't fucking morons. This is honestly, this is the hardest thing for Labor and Liberal and Nationals as well, right? This isn't just One Nation or Libertarians or whatever. Finding people that want to be in politics that aren't utter gobsmacking idiots is really, really difficult. And, you know, you get egoists, you get fraudsters, you get people who think it's just going to be some easy ride, don't understand the process. You get people that are in it to get back at somebody else and so prove that they can do a thing. You get people with all kinds of stuff in their past and their background. Like, it's really difficult to find somebody who's actually good and suitable and wants to do it. So this is the mountain that One Nation have to climb now, finding good candidates. And there will be some scandals. I promise you already, every single candidate they put forward, the Liberal Party, the National Party, and the Labor Party will be going through forensically, digging up anything they can find from that person's past or history to try and damage them. There will be scandals. And I hope that Pauline Hanson has the guts to just bully her way through those scandals and to basically brush them off, brush them aside. But this is the task they have now, is to find 100 and whatever it is, 152 valid, credible candidates to run Australia-wide.
Yeah. All right. So I want to segue over to messaging, political messaging, because we were just talking about this in Australia, but now we're seeing it in the US. And now this is just a quick example that happened. Now we're going to move on to Iran in a minute. And this is the Democrat machine playing out. Have you seen this yet?
No, I have not.
Okay, so this is a collage. So it's probably not going to be easy to read because it's a collage. But essentially, this is people coming out and condemning a protest that happened where people were chanting pro-Hamas slogans and essentially
can you make
saying,
that bigger?
I'm just going to save the image and then I'll see if I can zoom in.
Yeah, see if you can. Thank you.
So as I pull that up, so essentially what it is, it's the directive gets set and then it filters down. And we saw a version of this a couple of years ago. Remember all the talking head videos, and they all had literally the same script, and it was like Chuck Schumer, AOC
around COVID.
No. It was post election, or it was just before Trump got elected. It was just recently. Okay. And someone made the point of grabbing all those videos and putting them all together, and it was a collage because, like, regardless whether or not you like the messaging, it was more a point of this is how disingenuous these politicians are. They're not even speaking as themselves. It's a directive that comes from the party. It's get in line or piss off.
Messaging.
It's exactly the same here in Australia. So I found 100%. This image because it's a screenshot. I don't know if it's going to be easier to read this way, but let's have a look. Can I zoom in on that? Not really. Let me have a look. Okay,
just give us a taste. Have a bit of a readout.
All right. So we've got New York Attorney General James. Hamas is a terrorist organization. We do not support terrorists, period. Then you got some sass from AOC. Hey, so marching in a predominantly Jewish neighborhood and leading with a chant saying we support Hamas is disgusting and an anti-Semitic thing to do. It's pretty basic. And then you got Chuck Schumer. Let's be clear. Hamas is a terrorist organization committed to the destruction of the Jews whilst imposing its brutal rule on Palestine. And then down here, we've got Kathy Herschel. Hamas is a terrorist organization that calls for the genocide of Jews. Where was that enthusiasm for this topic 6 months ago? Yeah. Where, after 2.5 years of weekly pro-Palestine marches, after seeing all of the Hamas headbands and flags and all the other paraphernalia, now they're coming out saying this. I think there's something funny afoot here. I think with what's happening in Iran and what's happening with the global sentiment around Islam, they're trying to get in front of it, even though these people have been cheering this on for years. All of a sudden, something has shifted. The directive from the top has changed, and these posts were all done within a couple of days of each other. So that's the machine working.
Yeah, 100%. And this is literally true. This is not conspiracy theory. This is literally true. This is how this works. Someone from the office of every single elected Democrat and all the high-profile ones that are running for election at the next election, someone in their office, if not the individual themselves, will be on a group call at, let's say, 6 o'clock in the morning. And they've had staffers literally working overnight, watching everything coming out in the news cycle, watching the preprint of every single front page that's going to come out, going through all that stuff, trawling through it. And they will get a briefing. The briefing will usually go for half an hour, and they will get a briefing from, let's say, 6 o'clock in the morning till 6:30. These are the headlines. This is what we are saying about all of these things. And it's just part of being on message. I don't think that's actually nefarious in its own right. I don't think that's evil. If I was the director of a political party, would I do a similar thing? Hell yeah, of course I would. I don't want the media get in front of one of my candidates over here and they say one thing, and then they get in front of a different candidate and they get a different story, and then someone on the news compares the two that night. Like, that's a disaster for your credibility as a party. So I don't begrudge that process. Where I begrudge it is when they try and message something that is an obvious lie based on what they messaged only a few months before. Right? It's when that messaging changes, and it's not because they had a change of heart. I'm all for people having a change of heart. Hey, I realize I was wrong. That's my old position. This is my new position. I got all the time in the world for that. But people who are saying this thing and then saying that thing, never acknowledging the change and pretending that they were right both times. I have no patience for that. And when it's being done at an institutional level like that, I think it just becomes institutionalized gaslighting.
That's exactly what it is. I just found this story as well. So I'm not fully across this, but I thought it was worth playing. Have you heard of Blue MAGA? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, so this is a story. Let me just get rid of this. And I think this is just showing a further fracturing of the Democrat Party and the left in general, with it, now that they realize the progressives are so completely insane. And I'm seeing a lot of this now. That's just not my opinion anymore. That's literally people going, this has gone too far. This is ridiculous. Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes down to how nasty these people are to either law enforcement or people who are just doing their jobs or people who are just running businesses. I think your average liberal, and when I say liberal, I don't mean Australian liberal. I mean your people who are left of center are going, this is ridiculous. I don't stand for this. I don't like this. This is not what I'm about. And I think in Australia, Bondi did that here. A lot of people went, oh, shit. You know, we've been pro-Palestine for 2.5 years, talking about globalize the intifada and from the river to the sea, and now you just saw them get massacred on Bondi Beach. I think that really brought it home for people, went, oh, shit, maybe I'm on the wrong team. So I thought this was worth having a look at. Let me make it bigger.
I don't even know how to take that. Democrats are going full MAGA, blue MAGA. No, seriously, Democrats are asking themselves, quote, could blue MAGA revitalize the party? We hear they're making blue hats that say, make California great again, and swapping out the Village People for Stevie Wonder. I guess if you just can't beat them, join them. Democrats are admitting Trump was right about everything.
Nobody comes out looking better than Donald Trump and the MAGA right. Because the things that they were saying, the things that they were accusing the left of, the things that they were accusing legacy media of, whether it's true or not, they look right. They look like they were on point.
Democrats have never admitted we were right about anything, and now they're admitting we were right about everything. I don't even know how to take that. It's never happened before. They're all saying, you got us, we lied.
Democrats just spent 4 years arguing that the border was fine, inflation was not a problem, and Joe Biden was up to the job. And I think that 4 years of that message was really harmful. I think there are a lot of reasons why there are crises in confidence in the news media, in Democratic Party, in institutions. And I think all of it needs to be hashed out, acknowledged, and discussed.
Was that Tapper or Hannity? This isn't fun anymore. What's the point of having two parties if one side just keeps saying the other side's right?
I won't keep playing it. It's a long clip.
Yeah.
But you get the sentiment. I think it's finally hit home for a lot of these traditional lefties, your traditional Labours, your traditional Democrats, that they've overcooked it. And I don't think they can recover it. I really don't. I think the distrust between legacy media and the general public is cataclysmic. It's done. And I really do think this year we will see a rise of independent media stars. Like, obviously there's already some, right? There's already a few, but they're going to be people who become trusted voices. And the key with this, right? You and I are not journalists. We don't adhere to a journalistic code, but we do have very clear morals. We do
Yep.
have very, very strict values that we both operate with. Unfortunately, not everyone does. And so now with new media, independent media, you're going to have to try and decipher who those people are, who are in it for the right reasons, who are maybe posting content to get the clicks and get the views, because it's very easy. I mean, we could do this ourselves. I could do it tomorrow. With new media, there is going to be an effort to be measured in the content that you put out and the way that you speak about it, and not try and be first all the time. And what people also misunderstand with our politicians is they're not always this way when they go into politics. They get institutionalized. They get molded
100%.
into this, you know, whether it's money or power or status, you know, it poisons them. And then you end up like a Chuck Schumer or a Nancy Pelosi or a bloody Albanese, right? You've been in it too long. So the key with new media and independence is, you know, are they going to get drunk on their new fame?
Yeah.
Are they going to go down the Candace route and keep being more and more ridiculous?
We saw that happen a little bit. I'm not trying to throw shade here, but this is a lesson for us all. We saw that happen a little bit with the YouTubers that were brought in for the Epstein file dump, where they didn't have the nous to understand the room that they were in, the moment in history that they were in, let alone to push back when it all went to crap. But coming back to that clip that you played, you know, you used the expression earlier, and we talk about this all the time. You know, the lie's gotten halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to put its pants on. The flip side of that is that when the truth catches up, the ring of truth, that's a real thing. The truth has a ring to it. The truth lands and you go, I know that's true. Not always, but when there's a lie that has dominated your thinking for a long time, finally the truth catches up and it just kind of embeds itself in there, and then you can't shake it and it grows. And this is exactly what's happening for the Democrat Party, for American voting public. They've had lie after lie shoved down their throat for years, and then the truth caught up. And it took hold, and now it's taking over the Democrat Party. The people who were telling the lies to start with can't even deny the truth now that it's actually caught up with them. The truth is a very, very powerful thing. This is the anchor, really, for my expression. It sucks to be right early, but that's the only time it matters. Being right early means you got to the truth when everyone else was still under the illusion of the lie. Yeah. And you kind of have to become that person that seeds that truth, and then wait and cop all the hate and the damage and the attack and everything else that you get while everyone's convinced you're wrong, until eventually that root takes hold and grows, and suddenly, oh no, we knew that all along. We always knew you were right. You know, I was right the whole time too, don't you know? And they never give you credit, of course, but that's where you're actually doing your best work, is when you're right before everyone else has figured it out. When you've got to the truth while everyone else is still under the lie. And we're watching the fruit of that in the Democrat Party right now.
Yeah, and there's also an element of this as well, is not to get too confident. I think one of the most detrimental things that can happen to anyone who starts to build a platform online is to start to, you know, get drunk on their own supply and fall for all the sycophants who are in their comments going, "You're amazing, you're the best." Because I'm very skeptical of most things. I don't like a lot of things, and I don't like a lot of people, not because they're not good, just because I'm always like, And so I have been sent a lot of reels from new content creators. Have you seen this person? Have you seen this person? And I go look at all their content, and I'm not trying to tear people down. I want more people in this space. But when I look at their content, I see the pattern, and the pattern is, there's a news story. I'm going to put the picture on screen. I'm going to comment on it and be like, look at this. This is outrageous. You should be angry. I'll never present my opinion. I'll just tell you this is ridiculous and you need to get angry. And then the comments go crazy, and then they do the same thing, and they do the same thing. And what you're missing from that is nuance. Hey guys, I saw this. Now, I was pretty pissed off when I saw it myself, but there's something that I think doesn't sit right here. And then they go into their own spiel. I have a lot of time for that. I love people who go, "Hey, Carly, have you considered this though?" And I'm like, shit, no, that's an angle I hadn't looked at it from. Thank you. That's very healthy. But, you know, and now that we're starting to see, you know, the pendulum swing back, I do worry that a lot of these new people will have that exact same thing that we saw happen to House and Habit and all the people with the binders, you know, like.
And this is the thing. Well, for me now, I've been in this game 16 years, and I've had many an opportunity to go down any one of those rabbit holes and ultimately implode. It looks good. it gets you the clicks. You think you're getting somewhere, and ultimately you shipwreck. You destroy whatever credibility you had, and you end up really not even back where you started. You end up worse than where you started. So I've had to learn over 16 years to identify those traps and see them for what they are and to navigate that. And for whatever reason, I've been able to do that for the most part. You know, I don't have a perfect unblemished track record, but I've been able to navigate those murky waters relatively well. You've been in this game now really kind of 4 years, and you're finding your feet. Since you came back after the whole cancel effort, all that sort of stuff, and you're finding your feet, and you've got a pretty good instinct for this sort of stuff, and you're not one of these people that wants to chase this sort of stuff. I'm like you, that I want more people to join us in this space, but it is kind of heartbreaking watching people come up and you go, hey, this person's got talent. This person's got, they cut through, they connect, they've got a good instinct for a story. And then you watch them shipwreck. And I'm not going to name names, but you watch them make those mistakes. And, you know, some people have asked me for advice along the way, probably not as many as should have, but a few people have. And by and large, with only a handful of exceptions, most people haven't taken it. And a few people have made some pretty serious mistakes and probably taken themselves out of the fight. And it's kind of like, I feel like I'm watching, I don't know, it's an extreme analogy. This isn't a valid analogy, but I feel like I'm that combat veteran who's watching the new kids come in and you're like, you're not going to last long. You're going to get a bullet to the head. You know, and you just, it's very conflicting, because I don't want to turn around to these people and say, no, for your own sake, go drive a forklift, which is, by the way, the reason I use that example is because that's what I used to do. Go do something else, because this is not going to end well for you. But then again, also at the same time, I'm not Nostradamus. I don't know that to be true in every single case. And there have been a few that have surprised me on the really positive side as well. But it's a really messy space, and the likes of the Candace Owens of this world, and
it's a messy space, and it's rough because rough. You become a target 100%. Yourself. I mean, 100%. The one thing that I have that people can't take from me is, like, I was raised in a baptism of fire. Like, I don't think what happened to me in 2021, like, anyone could outdo that. Like, that's it. Like, that was my introduction. I survived it, and here I am. I think for a lot of people, they think it won't happen to them, or they're smarter. You can't outplay this. Like, if there's something that people want to go you for, it doesn't have to be true. That's what happened to me. It can be total bullshit. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Like, and the problem with this space is it's ugly because the stakes are high. You know, we're talking about real power, real wealth, real money. Yeah. And we saw that with Geordie's. Like, I know you're not a big fan of Geordie's, but I actually think the whole story of him and John Barilaro, was it Barilaro?
Yeah, Jordan Shanks and Barilaro. Yes, correct.
And Geordie getting his house firebombed. That's real life. That's what that's the stakes. To
be clear, we're not saying that Barilaro ordered the firebombing.
No, it was all alleged.
All just allegations and suspicions.
But that's the reality. If you kick the wrong hornet's nest, it's no longer cute with memes and of you in a bikini. It's someone's out for your blood. So it's so important to be careful. Yeah.
It gets very real very quickly. There's been a few stories that I've turned down because I'm not ready to take the heat back in the other direction. And I'm not going to pretend otherwise. I'm not going to pretend that I'm out there fearlessly, blah, blah, blah. I've got 3 kids now and a family that I'm responsible for. I'll give you the flavor of one of those stories. I was given some fairly compelling inside information on a person who was instrumental in the framing of West Australia's most recent round of gun restrictions and their connections to the Chinese Communist Party. Right? That's a juicy story. I could build a career on that story. I checked with this person who was my source, who I considered to be bulletproof reliable. I checked with him. I said, have you handed this on to the relevant authorities? Like, this needs to be known to ASIO, blah, blah, blah. Yes, 100%. They already know most of it, but I am communicating with them. Great. I'm not touching this story. Give it to the authorities, give it to ASIO, make sure our government understands all of what you've just explained to me and shown me the evidence of. I am not publishing this story because I am not ready. I can't do what Ben Shapiro does and spend $1 million a year on personal security for me and for my family. I can't do what a lot of these guys do. And I mean, we saw how that worked out for Charlie Kirk anyway. Like, I'm not in that position. And one of the reasons why I'm working as hard as I am during this phase last year, this year, and probably for a few years to come is because I know that not only do I need more income because I want to live well and I want to be, give good stuff to my wife and my kids and everything else, but this leads to a very expensive life. You know, if you're
Yes.
Ayaan Hirsi Ali, the courageous woman who's been calling out radical Islam for a very, very long time, you know, she doesn't have the income to support the private security that she needs. Like, it's life or death for her. And
Yeah.
thankfully she has benefactors that keep her protected. But, you know, this leads to a place where yeah, I have to have high walls and razor wire and cameras and people on standby, people ready to come running. That's where this leads, and not so much in Australia yet, but certainly in America. If you're one of the big ones, you know, if you're
Yeah.
Dave Rubin in America, you're being a lot more careful than he had to be
Tim
here in
Pool.
Australia.
Tim Pool just
you know, got his
recently,
heart
he's
shot up.
gone to ground. There was a
Yeah.
shooting out the front of the studio. There was a shooting at his house. Oh, sorry, an intruder at his house. He's been copping it. And like,
Yep.
you know, he's got a young family himself, and he's like, I can't put myself and my staff at risk. This is
Yep,
this is not
100%.
fun anymore. You know?
Yeah, and
I mean, sorry, go.
the irony is that is what you and I are striving for.
Mm.
That's our future if we succeed, right? And
way to make me enthused for the future.
well, let me make it even worse for you. You know what the scary version is? We get big enough to be under attack, but not big enough to afford the security.
Well, so it's funny.
That's
It's not funny you say that. It's ironic
Yeah.
you say that. Because I was going to segue over to Iran, and I actually kind of hesitated to touch Iran. Venezuela, I could do all day with my eyes closed. I'm confident. I know my socialism inside out. I feel confident in my knowledge around Latin America. But Islam and taking on like Iran and the extremists, I kind of hesitated because, you know, I literally just put my toe in the water. I'll play the reel in a second, but there's some real consequences. That's the one group of people who will kill you and they don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
these people don't value life. And so, you know, it's something that you kind of go, I don't know if I want to pick a fight with these people. I want to hold them to account. I want to call it out. I want to do all those things. But when I was putting this video for Iran, or people saying, say Persia now, together and reading some of the heinous things, I'm sort of going, I don't know if I want to be the anti-Islam girl on Instagram. I don't know if that I want that. You know, like that makes me nervous because, you know,
it's full on fatwa territory, but people are quite correct in the comments here. Don't call it Iran, call it Persia. Understand the people of Iran, the native people of Iran, are not actually Arabs in the way that we mean that term. They are Persians. They are very quick to, when you meet them in person, they are very quick to tell you that they are Persian. And descendants of the Persian Empire, once the dominant empire across a vast amount of planet Earth, and at that time the largest empire on Earth, and a country with a tremendously proud history that has suffered under, I'm going to use a buzzword, colonialism, Islamic colonialism. They were colonized by Islam. They were colonized by Islam in one of the Crusades. I'm going to get the year wrong, but it was in the 600s or the 700s when there was a massive expansion after when Muhammad had kind of done his thing. That region of the world was conquered. It was Islamified by force. A lot of history has happened since that point in time. But ultimately, in 1979, it fell back into the hands of hardline Islamists, thanks in large part to the actions of the CIA that had done a whole bunch of crap. And that's how we got to Saddam Hussein. There's a whole, the history there is messy, 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 messy. I don't know it as well as I probably should, but I know it's a hell of a mess. And unfortunately, you know, Western meddling hasn't helped any of the situations in that wouldn't be the 700th century, it'd be the 7th century, but thank you, in the 700s. You know, it's a hell of a messy part of the world, but focusing on recent history instead of the ancient history, which, you know, obviously matters, but not to the same degree. What we've got is a situation where Iran was, or has been, ruled with an iron fist. It is a terrorist state, and as is the nature of all of these states, the people who suffer the most are the people inside their territory. You say what you want about Iran sponsoring terrorism elsewhere. It's horrific, and so much of what's been done with Iranian money. And I'm going to say Iran in reference to the government and Persia in reference to the people. The Iranian government, the money that they've supplied to terrorist groups around the world has done heinous things. But what they have done to the Persian people is horrific. You and I have talked before. You look at photographs from the 1970s of Tehran, beautiful place, women wearing.
Play this reel? It does sure. Like gives a quick little encapsulation. Okay. I'm warning you. I did attach it to something. You'll see. Let me just pull this up for you. Alrighty. sardonically declared that she's indoctrinating her boyfriend into feminism by making him watch The Handmaid's Tale. But besties, I do have to ask, why study the fiction when the live-action remake is playing out right now in front of the world? I am, of course, referring to Iran, so let's talk about it. We all know our mate Abby loves a sanctimonious rant about feminism and the patriarchy. It's an easy position to take, given that she lives in the West, where cosplaying as a victim is rewarded and evidently rather lucrative. I'm not sure whether she's unaware or simply uninterested, but The Handmaid's Tale was never conceived as speculative whimsy. Margaret Atwood's inspiration for Gilead was what unfolded in Iran after the Ayatollah took power. For those playing along at home, that's the real theocratic regime that systematically subjugates women. Before the 1979 Islamic Revolution, Iran, under the Pahlavi dynasty, was a modernizing country that significantly expanded women's opportunities. They had the right to vote, the right to hold public office, and they could attend universities and work as doctors, lawyers, and teachers. They benefited from family protection laws, which raised the minimum marriage age, it granted expanded divorce and custody rights, and it restricted polygamy. They could dress as they pleased with no mandatory veiling. But sadly, during the 1979 revolution, which established the Islamic Republic under Ayatollah Khomeini, women's rights evaporated. The patriarchal elements of Islamic law were reinstated, which meant compulsory hijab was imposed with penalties enforced like fines, lashes, imprisonment, and the morality police. The minimum marriage age for girls was lowered to as young as 9 years old. And yeah, those marriages were consummated. In the West, we would call that child sexual abuse and PDF files. In Iran, women are the property of men. But hey, nothing says progress like marching in solidarity with the Ayatollah supporters across the Sydney Harbour Bridge now, does it? Today, Iranians are on the brink of a revolution, and after 2 weeks of nationwide fury sparked by economic collapses and Khomeini's iron fist, protests are raging. There's reports of over 400 people dead, 2,600 arrested, and the Iranian army is now vowing to crush unrest. Now the country is in a 3-day nationwide internet blackout to hide the bloodshed from the world. Iran's human rights record is disturbing and brutal. In 2025, the regime was estimated to carry out over 2,000 executions, marking an unprecedented high in 37 years. Approximately 30,000 young children were wed to much older men. Add to this widespread torture in prisons, persecution of religious and ethnic minorities, and a gender apartheid through mandatory veiling, and the morality police violence. Globally, Iran remains the foremost state sponsor of terrorism, channeling billions to groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, fueling proxy wars and regional instability. This is not some cute Hollywood fiction. This story belongs to the Iranians who are standing up to real tyranny, for women who are unafraid to burn the hijabs and reject Islamic extremism. And if your breed of feminism can't stand with them, then it stands for nothing at all.
Yeah, good reel. Couple of updates on the numbers you gave there, because obviously that came out, was it yesterday?
I did it yesterday morning, yeah.
It's now believed that, well, so this is some of the confrontations. I believe this is one of the ones from last night. So obviously Molotov cocktails being thrown by the people of Iran and bullets being fired in return. I'm led to believe that 2,000 people were killed last night. Obviously, these numbers need to be taken with a grain of salt, because we just don't, the fog of war, the reliable numbers are almost impossible to come by. But it has escalated into all-out bloody conflict. Elon Musk, to his credit, has made Starlink available. Starlink. However, obviously, they still have to have ground stations, and anytime the Iranians find a ground station, they kill everyone associated with it, because obviously they assume that they are rebels. I'm actually waiting on a call. One of the reasons I'm watching my phone as much as I am tonight, Dean Adams, is because I've actually got an interview scheduled with Tusi, and I'm looking forward to it. I did a few videos with him a little while back that he shared on his channel in the UK, and we've kept in touch since then. And I saw that he was all over this story a lot more than I am. I'm only on the periphery of it, but obviously he's Persian. And he's staying right across this story. So I'm literally expecting to sign off tonight, and all going well, go straight into an interview with him to try and get the lowdown and the latest, because he is right up to the minute on this. So I'll hopefully record that tonight and release it for you tomorrow morning so that you can be up to date. But it is genuine history in the making happening in Iran right now. It's wonderful to watch because of what it means and because of the potential that it holds for the future. But it's heartbreaking to watch because of the reality of what's happening today.
And I don't think people realize what the fall of the Ayatollah in Iran would do for the Western world in general. I mean, that was a 3-minute reel. I can't possibly do the history of Iran justice in that. But what I was trying to do is give you like highlight feels like the wrong word, but like some of the more disturbing parts of its history, because it's all well for women in the West to cosplay as victims and talk about our oppression. But when there's the real thing playing out right now, not only do you sound like a sanctimonious wanker, it also makes you complicit because you refuse to look at real oppression, and also incredibly narcissistic. And that was kind of the whole point of the Abby Chatfield thing at the start. You know, in the West, particularly, we're seeing a lot of these young girls who are starting to now, you know, get curious about Islam, who are now starting to entertain the idea that, you know, maybe they should align themselves with these Islamic extremists, particularly over the Palestine issue. And I mean, anyone with a modicum of, you know, common sense would understand those two things together are oxymoron. You cannot be a feminist and support fundamentalist Islam, but it doesn't matter. You know, that's how the Ayatollah came to power in the late 70s. It was actually the university students who were cheering it on. It was a lot of women at university who were Marxists who helped this all come to fruition. And now 37 years later, we see the toll that takes. Now, I referred to a movie, I think last week's episode, and I'm going to bring it to your attention again here. It's truly one of the few movies that has stayed with me. It's called The Stoning of Soraya M. It came out in 2009, and I believe you can watch the whole movie on YouTube. I Googled it yesterday because I played a small clip of it on my Instagram. And in it, it's based on a true story. It's not, you know, it's not the real thing happening, but the way it was filmed, it felt real. I vomited the first time I watched it. For those who are unaware, what it was a abusive husband who decided he wanted to marry a 14-year-old girl, and he basically convinced the village mullah to come together and then accuse his wife of adultery so that she could be stoned to death. And that is, stoning isn't necessarily common today, but that's the legacy of the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah Khomeini himself came out saying that virgins can't be killed until they're raped so that they can't go to heaven. This is the kind of people that we're up against. And I've said this on episodes before. This is not left or right. This is not cute. Trump, anti-Trump, you know, my team's better than your team. This is about, are you pro-human or are you anti-human? And this is so much bigger than our cute little Western politics where we get to, you know, put up bikini pictures of our prime minister and mock him. This is life or death. This is, I showed you that picture and it was disturbing for a reason. That was a child at almost full-term pregnancy. Like, this is the reality for women in Iran. And yet they've been under this for 37 years. And then you have people come out here going, oh, this is all American imperialization. You know, oh, this is colonialism. You know, this is the West constantly interfering. That might be true. But as Topher and I always say, two things can be true at once. And what's true right now is that Iran needs the support of the Western world. They need to be liberated. And you can go back to the 60s and talk about the CIA stuff. That's not helping these 9-year-old child brides today, is it? That's not helping these people who are being murdered by morality police for not wearing the hijab. Now, I'm all for freedom of expression of religion. Like, that's fine. But this is not freedom. This is a totalitarian theocracy. There is no nuance here.
And
so
there's a
right
difference.
now, sorry. Go.
There's a world of difference between saying this is my belief system, therefore I will wear the clothing appropriate to my belief system, versus this is my belief system, therefore you will wear the clothing appropriate to my belief system, right? Those are two completely different things. And that's really where our tolerance needs to end. People talk about the tolerance paradox, and the tolerance paradox being, if we tolerate the intolerant, then ultimately there will be no tolerance because they'll come to be in power and they won't tolerate the tolerance. But the tolerance paradox can be easily solved. I can tolerate whatever you want to do with you for as long as it doesn't affect anybody else. That's tolerance. But if you then turn around and say, well, you get to control what other people have to do, well, at that point, no, you're violating their rights. That's where the tolerance ends. It's a very, very simple paradox to solve.
This comment here, do you know that they almost abort full-term babies in Australia now? Who's the people cheering for that? Who are the people who want full-term abortion? Who are the people who are so pro-abortion in this country? It's the same people who cheer for this shit. Like, do you know what I mean? This is the evil we're up against. Not to bring her up again, but old mate, made a video saying how much she loves abortion.
I'm getting drunk on water this episode, Carly. I'm just like far out. Slow down.
Do you know what I mean? So this is why it's so important to have spaces like X, have podcasts like this where you can talk about this, because our leaders aren't talking about this. I mean, I lost my absolute shit at one of our last episodes at the end of last year, right, when I was talking about this. We have people on the record who are saying hateful things, whether it's our senators in the Greens, whether it's Payman or Faruqi or Abby Chatfield calling for the assassination of Donald Trump. Nothing happens. These people aren't held to account. And these are the people who tell us that we live in an oppressed country. I mean, Australia's got a lot wrong with it, but it's sure as shit not North Korea, sure as shit not Iran. And, you know, my frustration with this, again, I put up that Venezuela reel 2 weeks ago. You go read the comments, all the Venezuelans. I mean, wonderful. I've got a whole new following of Venezuelans in a couple of days, which is wonderful. And they're all voicing their opinions. And in those very same comments are people chastising me because I'm incorrect. I'm championing US propaganda. You know, the people who need a voice right now is the Iranians, Persians. They're the people who are trying to get it through to the West. Do not let these people in your country. This is what happens. And yet, after Bondi, nothing's fucking happened, has it?
Was it the UAE or was it another Middle Eastern country that is now stopping funding for their residents? So it's a common thing for these countries to pay their citizens to travel abroad to study, because they don't necessarily have the university system at home domestically, so they will support their citizens to go and get their degrees elsewhere. And they are no longer paying for their citizens to get degrees in the UK. Why? Because they're worried about Islamic radicalization whilst their UAE residents, their UAE citizens are studying in a UK university. Right. Yeah. The UAE understand the threat of radical Islam, understand the threat of radicalization, especially in universities, more than the UK do. And they are taking active steps to make sure that their citizens don't end up experiencing a radicalization in the UK of all places. Like, how did we get here?
I was going to read this quickly. The UAE has officially started cutting funding for its students at UK universities because they view these campuses as incubators for the Muslim Brotherhood. It is a group they've banned as a terrorist organization, which, by the way, are freely able to operate here in Australia. And they feel that the West has just normalized it. They're so serious about it that they've stopped recognizing degrees from certain UK schools entirely, making them useless for graduates heading to the Gulf. And it's not just a UK thing. The numbers in the US are even crazier. Qatar has poured in over $6.5 billion into American schools since 2001, and roughly $3 billion of that was never even reported. Elite schools like Cornwall and Georgetown are the biggest recipients, which basically creates a massive financial dependency on a foreign regime. I didn't even know that. That's horrifying. You know, like I said at the end of my reel, that a lot of this blood money has been siphoned into the West to fund institutions who are now brainwashing our kids. We can see it. This is no longer speculation. The evidence is astounding now.
And we are having to be told by the people that we would not have expected, right? We would not have expected a Middle Eastern country to be saying, hey, West, you realize that Islamic radicalization is a problem, right? In our cultural idea of how the world works, we think, well, they're a Muslim, that's a Muslim area, so they'd be on board this. No, they're not. Islam is not a single group. There are incredibly deep and bitter and often violent and deadly divisions between the different factions and sects within Islam. And not all of them want to cut everybody's head off, thankfully. And so the ones that...
Sorry, go. Sorry. I just want to show you this. Yeah. So Sunday just gone, the protests are back on. You know, they took a small pause over Christmas, I suspect, because they were busy. But now the unemployed are back out protesting. And this is just after Bondi. So I'm going to play this for you. Let me pull it up. These are university students.
Do they have anything more clever than that?
No, that's it. Just all Zionists are terrorists. And where do they get these ridiculous ideas? Fucking TikTok and university.
Well, but also like the shirt that he was wearing, globalize the intifada, that is literally calling for the murder of Jews. That is literally agreeing with and calling for more of what those two did at Bondi. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free is another popular chant of theirs. That is literally calling for genocide of the Jewish people. Don't give me some bullshit about how it's about the Israeli state. In the minds of the Jew haters, there is no difference between those two things. I like to talk about the Zionists. I like to talk about the Jewish state as though it's a separate entity because that's more politically correct. It muddies the waters a little bit. Spend some time sitting with these people, talking to these people. It does not take long for their genuine hatred of Jewish people to come out. Otherwise, why would you globalize an intifada? If it's just about the Jewish state, if it's just about that land, there's no need to globalize it, right? Why are you globalizing it? Because it's not just about that land.
And further to that, I mean, I've brought it up 100 times on these podcasts, but that video or the images we saw, of the pro-Palestine protests going over Sydney Harbour Bridge. What has happened since that? I haven't seen anything. You had Julian Assange, you had Maureen Faruqi, you had John Ruddock, all standing there with signs of Ayatollah Khomeini, of the ISIS flag, of the Hamas flag. That radicalization is here.
I'm really appreciating the fact that march is not going to age well. That Ayatollah Khomeini sign they had over their heads. Obviously I'm rooting for the rebellion in Iran or in Persia right now. And I'm hoping that I'm hoping that they well and truly absolutely kick that guy's ass. But if they do, if he gets deposed and the Persians celebrate the way that I think they will, which I think will be comparable, if not even more spectacular than the way Venezuelans celebrated, then at that point, I think we just need to be reposting photographs of that march with the Ayatollah above all these people's heads and just tagging them relentlessly, just a relentless tagging campaign and saying, hey, how about this, huh? How did this age? How do you like this now?
And do you remember that little stunt that Pauline Hanson did late last year where she went into Parliament again wearing the burqa, and you had Senator Payman, who is Afghani, coming out and saying, oh, that's racist and it's against the Constitution, which, if you want to show that you're a half-wit, mate, like you're doing a really good job. But, for Payman to come out and say, that's a religious expression, what woman in 45-degree fucking heat wants to wear an all-black burqa and not be able to speak in public? None of them chose it. And as an Afghani woman, I cannot fathom how she can come to Australia and still champion what the Taliban are doing in Afghanistan. That is not native Afghani dress. Prior to Islam, Afghanistan was a very cosmopolitan city. Same with Syria, Damascus. I was in Damascus before it fell to ISIS. These places are rich in history, they're rich in culture, and I cannot speak higher of the hospitality I experienced in both Syria, in Egypt, in Jordan. I love the Middle East. I love it. The culture, the richness. I'm obsessed with Egypt. You guys know this. But what I cannot stomach and what I will not stand for is this radical Islam that we now in Australia aren't allowed to speak about because apparently it's Islamophobic.
Oh, can't criticize it. Nope.
And I did, I had to exclude it from that reel, but in that reel, I had a picture, a screenshot of a man in Iran who was parading the decapitated head of his own 17-year-old wife. And for whatever reason, he decapitated her as an honor killing and was parading it around the streets. Now, he did get 8 years for that. But that wasn't too long ago. And people go, oh, well, that's over there. Like that doesn't happen here. Well, I bring to your attention a story in South Australia where the family of a young woman was stabbing her. Her own father and brothers stabbed her in an honor, like it was an attempted honor killing. Thankfully, she survived. That is here on this soil. We had the two nurses in Bankstown saying online that their whole purpose is to kill Israelis. And people say, you can't say that here. That extremism isn't here. It is here. And for anyone who's Muslim, who's watching this, if you are a Muslim, please stand with us and talk about this, because unfortunately, the more you keep your mouth shut, the more it does look like all Muslims. Islamic extremism has to be eradicated. And I will not back down from my stance on that.
Yeah. And silence is taken to be consent. If you are saying nothing in the face of it, then unfortunately, from a legal standpoint as well as a moral one, it's taken to be consent. I have some really good news that I want to end on, but before we end, we've just had an amazing super chat, $50. Thank you very much, Doug Melrose.
Oh, thank you, Doug.
And he asked a great question here because we actually didn't get to this part of the story about the X stuff. He says, love your work, guys. Thank you. Question, what do you think is going to happen with X Twitter since Oz, UK, Canada government are trying to ban X? Same results as the under-16s ban or a different outcome? Great question. Thank you for bringing us back to this because I didn't actually get to the end of this. I talked earlier about the fact that Canada have actually ruled out a ban, and they did it right out of the gate. So clearly the group, the band that Keir Starmer was trying to put together, this unified front of everyone else versus America, that's already fractured. Canada are out. They want to play nice with America. The reality is, no, I don't believe that there is going to be a ban. And there's a couple of key reasons for that. Number one, the ban wouldn't be able to ban people using VPNs. So it would be a potentially good reason for Australians to get VPNs. And unless they're going to ban VPNs and make ISPs disallow traffic that's going through a VPN, which would then cause havoc for all kinds of businesses like that, there'd be a meltdown, a national meltdown over that. I can't see it happening in practice, and I can't even see it working for them politically. It's just too obvious. It's too cynical, and the public, I mean, look at what's happening already with One Nation. Can you imagine how that would get turbocharged if they really came down heavy-handed? Not to mention, Trump has already made it very clear, very, very clear. If you mess with American tech companies, we will get our pound of flesh back from you. He did that with the EU on their trade agreements. They wouldn't come to the party on actual free trade, so he slapped a bunch of tariffs on them. Now, that's actually just to balance the playing field. I covered that in detailed videos at the time. We've seen that with Australia. We've got a bunch of tariffs on us. The only reason Trump was even nice in any way, shape or form to Albanese when they did finally meet was because he needs our rare earth minerals, right? He needs those for the military, for chip manufacturing, for battery manufacturing. That's the only reason we've got a foot in the door pretty much at all with the US right now. If they turn around and they ban X, that will be a genuine, like, not even a red line. That will be a red mist moment for Donald Trump. Now, understand, Trump and Musk have had their moments of disagreement, their moments of butting heads, and both of them are passionate people, and they butted heads in pretty spectacular fashion. But one of the many silver linings of the assassination of Charlie Kirk is it made them remember what the stakes are. It made both of those men remember what they're playing for. This is civilizational. This is life and death. This isn't just about money or ego. And it brought them straight back together. And they said so publicly. They sat there and they talked at Charlie Kirk's memorial in the stadium. There were photographs of them talking behind the bulletproof glass. And that completely reset that relationship. And if Keir Starmer or Anthony Albanese or the Karen, sorry, the thinking about what is coming her way puts a massive smile on my face. If they think that they're going to be able to ban X and not absolutely cop it in return, then they are delusional. They are utterly delusional. Now, Trump's not going to do a military raid like what he did with Maduro. None of that's going to happen, sadly. That'd be nice. We're a lot further away than Venezuela. And yes, I did restructure that sentence to include the word Venezuela specifically so that you could have a drink. You're welcome. That's not going to happen. But he has an enormous amount of leverage, political leverage, economic leverage. And he's not afraid to use the bully pulpit, to use the fact that he has the biggest pulpit in all of human existence right now, and that is the pulpit of the President of the United States of America. No, I don't see that happening. I think Keir Starmer is going to try and make some noise for a little while. He's going to try and score some political points. He's going to think that it's going to play well at home, and it'll help to shore up his somewhat tenuous position in his domestic situation at home. But no, I don't see X. I don't see them even actually attempting it. And if they attempt it, I do not see them being able to follow through with it.
Yeah, I don't see it happening either. But I think, again, I said this, the first episode back. The under 16s ban, all it's done is push kids into more nefarious parts of the internet where, it's unregulated and God knows what they're up to. At least on Instagram and Snapchat, you can kind of like watch them and you understand what's going on. But, you ban X, there'll just be something else. I mean, I don't think they'll ban X, but this is something that politicians seem to forget. And I keep bringing it back to human behavior. Like, we will always find a way. And the more you ban it, the more people are going to join X. This is what's so fantastic about it. I mean, they keep posting that X is the #1 news app like
Yep.
across all the Western nations. It's because
And
people
still
are like,
getting 120 million downloads a month, even now with all the users it's already got. 120 million downloads a month.
absolutely, because people want to be part of the conversation, and whether it's just they're watching from the sidelines or they're getting in there themselves. I think what our politicians are doing, I mean, I don't want to tell them this because they'll change what they're doing, but they're making it worse for themselves. They're making it worse. And if you cut down to people's ability to communicate, a little bit like the Ayatollah did in Iran the last couple of days by turning off the internet and cutting cell power or cell towers, you know, it's not a good look trying to silence your citizens. So unless you want to be like in the, you know, alongside someone like Khamenei or Kim Jong-un, I'd probably leave that shit alone.
Yeah. All right. We're an hour and 50 minutes in. Are you ready for some good news to finish the show?
Is there good news?
It is actually good news. You'll
Okay.
enjoy this. You will like this. So I did a story recently where I interviewed a police officer who was the police officer who was turned away on the day of the bike boy crash, Ryan Muleman being hit by the Daniel Andrews and his wife's car. And a police officer was turned away. He was on his way to it. He was the closest one, and he got told to retask, go do something else. And someone who was further away came in instead. And then a whole bunch of stuff that should have been done wasn't done. And it certainly has the appearance of a cover-up. And that's a long time ago now. It's 14 years ago, if my memory serves me correctly. It was a long time ago that this happened. And I think Daniel Andrews for a long time believed that he was going to get away with it. And I think a lot of people have assumed that he's just going to get away with it. Well, here's the interesting thing. The reason I did that interview was because he was a part of a podcast that's been put together by some guys, Jackson Moon being one of the producers on that, someone that I've been chatting with for quite some time. And they released that podcast the day that I released my interview with that police officer. Now, I'm not claiming credit for this. This is not just me. There's other people promoting it as well. But I just now, literally 10 minutes ago, got a text message from Jackson Moon saying that they've just had their 100,000th download of that podcast. So I would suggest that Australians are still quite interested in this topic. I would suggest that it ain't dead, it ain't buried. And I would suggest, and he says that they're on every single podcast chart in Australia. So they're trending. They're trending across all the charts. So
You
Daniel
cannot
Andrews
outrun the truth.
Yeah, it eventually, yeah, sure, the lie gets her halfway around the world before the truth puts its pants on. But the truth, once it gets moving, is relentless and impossible to kill. You cannot kill the truth. It eventually finds you out. And Daniel Andrews is going to spend, at best, he's going to spend the rest of his life running from it. And I'm optimistic that it will eventually get him and it will actually properly catch up with him.
I think will too. And I think he's made a lot of enemies on his own side now as well, I think. And, you know, no one wants to go down with a sinking ship. I think you'll see in the next 6 months. I mean, we've already seen it actually. There was a little act of defiance in the Labor Party in Victoria just recently where the MP for Sunshine, I'm so sorry, I can't remember her name, but she basically defected and said that we do have a crime issue in this state and we do need more police and we do need more things. And now, obviously, Sunshine's a sort of a low socioeconomic area that encapsulates, I think, Broadmeadows and St. Albans and that sort of area. And so she probably sees it. And I'm sure her constituents are saying to her every day, like, when are you going to do something? Why aren't you doing anything? Why don't you care? And I think what we'll notice, I don't think Jacinta Allen will make it to the election. I really don't. I think her head will roll. I think what you'll see is exactly like that Jake Tapper clip that we just watched. A lot of Labor parties going, we've gone too far. We've overplayed our hand. We need to get back in the good graces of the public. And I think you'll see a lot more defection. We saw a little bit from it. Kawashi, oh gosh, I forget her name in COVID.
Kalushi. Gosh, I know who you mean.
I've got her name.
Yeah, I know who you mean.
She was the one Labor MP who crossed the floor to vote with the Liberals during COVID.
Yeah. Had the decency to do the right thing. Yeah,
exactly. I think people who, and she was Hindi, I think. She's Indian and she's a practicing Hindi, I think. I don't want to get that wrong.
Yeah.
But obviously faith-led person. And that stands to what I said earlier in this podcast. If you have strong values, it's not hard. But if you don't have values, and unfortunately a lot of our MPs do not, you blow in the breeze of whatever's currently trending, and then eventually you're out of favor. And someone like your Dan Andrews, for example, and obviously his protege, Jacinta Allen, I would argue, and I'd be happy to go on record at saying these people are morally bankrupt. They care about winning and votes at all cost, and that's made them do some pretty heinous things. And they'll gaslight and they'll double down, as all Machiavellian types do. But eventually, you run out of lies. You know, eventually you can't outrun the truth. And I think that's my excitement coming into the election season of Victoria, elections this year in November. I do think that not because the Liberal Party is good. I just want to be clear. I don't think the Liberal Party is good, but I think Labor has failed this state so spectacularly that people can't in good conscience vote for them.
So I like your theory about what's her name? Female Dan Andrews. Victorian Premier. Name escapes me. Alan, Jacinta Allen. So I don't know why that suddenly left my brain. I like your theory about her. I have a slightly different theory, though. I don't think anyone's going to be willing to challenge her. Okay. I think they understand that the chalice is poisoned. I think the cane Kerner analogy is strong with this one, where the male power brokers were smart enough to take a step back and go, you know what? We don't want to be the one that follows Andrews and the dumpster fire and inherits the dumpster fire. We're going to let a woman step in and say, oh, yay, look at us, Progressive Party, knowing that she's going to get absolutely destroyed at the next election. I think that's the play. I think they're going to leave her and they're going to hang her out to dry. And I think what we're actually going to see is a lot of division in the Labor Party and a lot of white anting from within, because there are people in the Labor Party, a little bit like the Liberal Party at the last election, where they didn't really want to win. There were people there who would rather lose than actually win with a good person in charge. I think the same thing's actually going to happen with the Labor Party this time. But I want to come back to the question that I had on screen for a while there about, do you think that Albo will leave after the next election like what Daniel Andrews did? And then this comment that I've got on the screen now, there's a lot of rumors flying around about Daniel Andrews at the moment, and I'm hearing different versions of them, which usually means none of them are correct. When something splinters into 1,000 different theories, usually it's because there was no substance to it in the first place. Usually the truth kind of coalesces around kind of a single story. However, there are exceptions.
In hospital. He was in
hospital. He was in hospital, but this one says heart condition. The last one I read said lung cancer. I've heard all kinds of things. Oh, it's a VAX injury. This and that. Of course, people are saying whatever because no one knows. The reality is, I would like Daniel Andrews to have a come to Jesus moment while he's alive, and have the opportunity to repent. And I'd like to see him in heaven. I don't wish hell on anyone, but I'd like him to have that moment and then die immediately, because I don't want him to have the pleasure of growing old.
You're a better man than me.
I don't think that that's a privilege that he deserves, given what he's done to others and given the lives that he cut short and the misery that he inflicted on so many people. But it would not surprise me at all if he finds himself with a rapidly declining health. And my theory on that is, number one, he's a chain smoker, high stress, overweight.
He's an alcoholic.
He's an alcoholic.
That's not alleged. He's a full-fledged alcoholic. Yeah.
And he also is discovering that post-politics, you don't have the friends that you thought you had. Now, the Chinese appear to have been pretty loyal to him. That seems to be a real thing, because he got in that photo with Xi Jinping. But outside of that, everyone makes promises you the world while you're in politics. Oh, give me this contract and I'll sort this out for you afterwards, blah, blah, blah. But then when the time comes for them to deliver, they make a calculation. What's it going to cost me to not deliver on this promise? Is it going to hurt my relationships with the people who are now in positions of power? Is it going to affect trust with them? Yes or no? What's their relationship like? How much do they like each other? They throw you under the bus if they think they can get away with it, if it's not going to hurt their new round of business dealings. And Daniel Andrews is widely disliked even within his own party, and people can throw him under the bus just fine, and it's not going to hurt their existing relationships. So I think he's finding himself in a pretty stressful situation where a lot of what he thought would come to him easily in a post-politics world is not coming to him anywhere near as easily, and I think his health is failing. I think the stress has got to him. However, none of that answers the question about Albo. Will Albo walk after this? I doubt it. And the reason I doubt it is because he's not cut from the same cloth as Kevin Rudd or Malcolm Turnbull or, in fact, Daniel Andrews, who were all ambitious climbers who have a vision for their lives far beyond politics. This is just a stepping stone for them into bigger and better things with the UN or with multinational organizations or global business with the Chinese. Politics was a stepping stone. For Albo, this is his dead end. And surely he's smart enough to recognize that. Surely he's enough of an outsider. He tells us all the story all the time, right? Grew up in a housing commission, single mum, blah, blah, blah. Surely he knows that he is and will always be an outsider. And he understands that means that this is it for him. This is the end of the line. He needs to milk this and enjoy this for as long as he possibly can, because there is no career for Anthony Albanese post-politics. No one's inviting him onto the board of their multinational company. No one's putting him forward for Secretary General of the UN. None of that's happening for him. He'll probably struggle to get an ambassador position. Honestly, he might, manage to chum it up and get an ambassador position, but that's about as good as it gets for him. So I would have thought, and surely he's got the self-awareness, maybe he doesn't, I don't know. I would have thought that he is going to hang on in there for as long as he possibly can, that if he is replaced, it'll be because he's knifed in the back, not because he steps down.
Okay. Well, we wait and see, but I thought I'd throw this in just quickly. Like, you go open a history book and look at all of these dictators and all of these nefarious types, and they rarely meet a good end.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So, and the key thing is, I am not the karma police. I don't want to be the one that is, the vigilante that goes out there and deals them their karma. I'm willing and patient enough to let it all unfold.
Yep, let it go. Let it go. Don't go down to the sports store and buy yourself a do-it-yourself karma kit, which for those who don't know is a baseball bat. Let it sort itself out. Let it sort itself out. All right. We should wind it up.
Good chat.
I forgot to grift.
Tough.
Tell you what, guys, buy so much merch that I can buy a private plane, and I promise you, if I have a private plane, I will never again post bikini selfies. Okay, that is my solemn promise to you. It'll never happen again. Just donate or buy enough of my merch, buy enough of my books, buy whatever, buy me enough coffee. If I have that private plane, I will never post another bikini selfie. That is my promise to you.
I can't promise that I won't be responsible for some terrible AI, but hey, we'll wait and see.
It won't be me.
And if you haven't already, guys, join up as an Oddie, and you can jump in the Discord and support the Oddcast. We appreciate the support here, and we'll keep doing this as long as we can, as long as you guys keep watching.
As long as we're having fun and you're having fun, we will keep showing up. Thank you very much.
And
until
tell people
Wednesday
about
night.
The show. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Tell people about the show. Yeah,
and don't tell them about this week's thumbnail. That we want people to actually show up and watch. So let's keep that on the down low. Bye.
All right.